Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in last video we were discussing the TLS certificate, how the Kubernetes is creating the TLS certificate during the installation, where it has been stored, and what is the use of the TLS certificate. Then we have seen that by default how the authentication works and the authorization. The default certificate which is assigned to a kube admin user, what is the use of that certificate, where it has been stored, and what are the roles defined to that particular certificate, and then what is the role binding. So these things we have discussed in our last video, where we have seen that few default role. Apart from that, we have something called cluster role and cluster role binding also we have seen. We have also discussed that role and role binding are a namespaced scope object, whereas cluster role and cluster role bindings are non-namespace. They are have the access across all cluster, whatever the object or the nodes you have, they can do in across all namespaces. That means, all right. So in today's video, we're gonna discuss how you can create a account, and then using that account how you can create a certificate for that user, and using that certificate we will try to authenticate, and then we will give a role to that user just to list out all the ports, and how you can bind that particular role to that user. All right, so let's start now. So this is my cluster, where you can see that as of now the node 2 is not ready because it is powered off, it is not working, not power on, right? So obviously it is not as a part of the cluster now. But yeah, we are good enough to explain this demo with master and the node 1 demo. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's create a role called readers. This is, you can see, I have these I think we have already discussed, but let me just discuss you this YAML file again. This is the role manifest YAML file syntax, where you can see this is the API we are calling. Kind, obviously it is a role. Metadata is just a name of that particular role. Under metadata, you need to define some rules. So we have discussed the first one is API groups, right? You can define multiple rules within one role as well. This API group, if your particular resource, for resources which you are doing, let me show you. Let's say if you are saying K, and then I would say API, I show you RCS, API resources, right? So this is the version I was talking about. If this is a core version, let's say if you are defining a rule for config map, right? Then you need to put this way. Like you can define the empty block for the API group, because that is understood for the core API resources. But if you have this class, let's say for if you are doing for the daemon sets, right? Then you need to define like this. Then you cannot leave this empty. You need to define a full path of your API class, right? Like networking, whatever you are doing, storage, like that you need to do. Then you have that under that resources, what, sorry, API, what resource you are trying to do. So here I'm trying to do for the pods. And the verbs is nothing. Verbs is a kind of actions which you want to take through with that particular role. So here I want to get list and create the pods using this role, app team. Okay. Now, how you can bind that particular role? To binding that role, obviously now the kind is role binding. Metadata under the subject, first you need to define a kind, like to whom you want to bind this. So this way you can see it is a user, and the name of the user is this one, and this is the API group, and which role you are binding. So role reference you need to give. Here you can see you are giving a kind equal to role, and which role we just need to create this role which we have created, I mean the discussed within this. So the same role you have to bind this. Now a user developer one can do what? He can list and get the detail of your all the ports, and he can create as well. If you are not defining any of the namespace here, so obviously it is applicable to default namespace. All right. Now Let's first create, try to create this role. Okay, I'm just copying because I have not pushed this data to our repo, but I will push. I think in last video we have created certificate called DS. Okay, this is the file. Samrole.yml. If you see, so here what I'm doing is I'm creating a role called app team. Okay, and the same role you can see ports, get, list, and create. Whereas if I just want to try to list this, I am binding this app no this one, sorry, app team role to a name called role binding name called app team binding, and then I will gonna define this role for a user Sam. Okay, now you can see Sam is already there. There is no user Sam. I'm not sure. Let's see. It is created now. Okay, what do you think if I just switch to Sam? So Sam will be able to do it or not, because we have already assigned this role, right? So user can do it. Let me go back and I will show you. If I just say k describe role binding, and the role binding is this one. Okay, we haven't created obviously. So first we need to create k create hyphen f, and let's create first role and then create a role binding. And the role binding file is this one. It's done now. Now, if you want to describe this role, so you can see user Sam, we have assigned this role. Whereas if you describe the role binding we have discussed, but if you see what a user can do, then we need to define this role. You can see this user, right? This user can do this. He can list out the port under this all these resources. Okay, so now if I switch to a SAM user and if I do kubectl get ports, see it is not, it is saying connection refused. Why? Because kubectl by default is looking for what? Looking for this file kubeconfig. But as of now, there is no file. Why? If you remember, to do something, first we need to get in. We need to authenticate that user, right? And to authenticate, we understood that we need a TLS certificate so that we can get into that particular server and we can list out all these things. So to authorization, what we need? We need a certificate and we need a key. And how to get the certificate for a particular user? That's what we will discuss now. Okay. So for that, I have created a file called this samcsr.yml. What it is saying is, it is saying create a dedicated user, whatever the user password and home directory. If you want to log in directly from that user, that is required, but here we are just switching from the root user, so it's fine. Now you need to create a key for that particular user. Okay, I just quickly copy paste to all these. Permission denied, because we it is this is something that if you see, we are in this file, and here root is the permission, and we are logged in with Sam, right? So either you need to sit in his home directory with the correct permission, or what you can do is you can do one thing, you can create it with the root itself. Okay, so what I will do is I will just quickly do it with the root only. The key is created, Sam key. Now let's see how you can sign a CSR key. Here there is a catch, guy. When you are binding this role, right? This role, when you are binding to that particular user. So what do you need to do? Here you can see here hyphen o reader is a cluster role or maybe a role which is created for SAM to list all the ports cluster wide and binded in certification. In this example, we are creating a cluster role. But in our demo, we are not going to create a cluster role. Either we are, rather we are going to create a role which can list the port, but in default namespace, not across all namespace. All right. So that we have already created, right? But it is not reader. It is what? It is k get roles. It is a app team, not API, app team. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to change this reader to that particular this. Because we have understood, right? In the last video, when we are seeing that Cube API cert certificate detail, we have understood that it was assigned a system master to Cube admin, and system master can do anything. That is the reason, as of now, if I do kget role, kget pod, kget namespace with any namespace, I can create storage, I can create user, I can create not user maybe, but set service account user. All these things I can do because as of now I have the full privilege with the cluster masters admin. But that I don't want, right? Because with the RBAC, that's not the policy. RBAC says just assign a role based, like the minimum least privilege, whatever that particular user is required, only those things you need to assign. All right. So that's what we are doing here. Okay. So now I have this CSR is ready. This is the CSR and this is the SAM key. Now you need to create a CSR role binding file. What is the use of that CSR role binding file is because we need to bind this CSR certificate signing request is with this our class this one Kubernetes cluster, right? That's what in the real world when you create a TLS request, what you need to create is you need to create a key and you need to create a CSR request. Then you are sharing this CSR with whom? With the certificate signing authority. They will check the all details like whether because in actual you need to put many of the details here, like you need to put the company name, organization, your location and everything, and they will verify. Once they find okay everything is okay, then they will like sign the certificate and give it back to you, and that certificate you can use in your application. But since here we have the self-signed certificate, which is the Kubernetes, so we are not going away. We are just signing the same CSR key with our Kubernetes certificate. And how to do that? In order to do that, you need to create a manifest file called certificate signing request. All right. So let me quickly copy this and I would say sam-csr.yaml. I will copy. So here, let's understood what we have put here. This is the API version. This is the kind, which is certificate signing request, and you need to put the metadata as the name of that certificate. What is the specification? Group, I am saying system authenticated. This we have seen, right? Because what I not need to do is system authenticated. If you see all authenticated user with valid cert for read permission, right? So this is the group I am assigning because this is the internal group, right? That is what it's required for to authenticate, right? But in order to list, it is not mandatory, guys, that you need to assign that or you need to embed that particular role in the certificate itself. But just to show you, you can do that. Later on also, if you want, you can create some role and you can what you can do is you can just assign that role to a particular user. Okay, we will try to do let's say storage access or maybe different resource access. But let's finish this, and then you need to give a usage is client auth. That is the like you want to as a client you want authentication to that particular group. And who is the signer? Obviously this is the signer, our it's request, who is taking this request, right? So in order to put that, you can see that we have the sam.csr, right? But you cannot put this way. Why? Because you need to put in base 64 format. And how to do that? Let's do this. Just cat this in base 64 format. Okay, it's not giving you in one line. So let's do one thing. Because if you put this way, right? Let me try. Then what will happen is it will give you in the same way. But request is like kind of expecting we need to put the same thing in one line only, right? That doesn't matter if the line is over, then automatically it will switch to the next line. But by default, there is no space, right? That's what we need to put in one line. So let's copy this and I will go to sam csr and I will paste the certificate list here. All right, that's done. Now what you need to do is you need to create this file, right? You need to apply and then you need to see that, okay, whether it's there or not. I will show you. Okay, let's quickly apply this. K create hyphen F and this one, right? If you see now K get CSR, you can see that there is a certificate called SAM CSR, which is a requester is Kubernetes admin and it is pending, right? So being a certificate administrator, you need to approve this so that it will check all the detail, right? While creating this CSR YAML file, always refer the documentation for the more details. Okay, now I need to approve this, and how to approve this? I think it is K certificate approve, and whatever the name of that particular certificate, it is SAM CSR, right? Now you can see it is approved. Earlier it was condition was pending. Now let's see what is the condition now. It is saying approved and issued. If you have some typo in this file, or maybe if you have not put a correct authorization on this file, right? So what will happen is this will automatically get rejected because it is checking all these detail, whether it's authenticated, whether your request is in correct base 64 encoded or not, what is the usage you are going to do, all this. That is why it is recommended always check the documentation for this certificate signing request whenever you are creating. All right, because internally it is checking this. If it is find any kind of discrepancy or the like syntax is not correct or anything, this will not approved and it will get rejected. Now we have the certificate, right? And how to do that certificate, like how to get that certificate, what you can do, K get CSR, and this is the CSR and hyphen O YAML. So here you can see, if I'll just run again, so it will be clear. Here you can see this is the certificate. This is the system authenticated. This is the request which we have raised, right? And under this, after the signing, the certificate is this one. So this is the certificate which we got from the Kubernetes, and this is the certificate which we need to authenticate ourselves. Let's see what it is saying is. Again, it is saying it's in base encoded 64 format. That's what we have discussed. Now you need to create this file under that user home directory. Okay. Now let's first create this directory and then we'll create this file. Okay. Now, mm, mkdir hyphen p home sam and I will say cube. Okay, now I will say chown hyphen r. By default this thing already created when you logged in with that user and everything, but here we have not logged in, so it will not gonna create the certificate home directory. Or maybe this there are few other settings which we can get it once you switch to that particular user with root also. That way also you can get this home directory. I will say home and sam. All right, now if I switch to sam, it will go to your home directory. You can see sam. Now you have that file called cube, right? And we have full permission as well. Do one thing, let's cat that file first, the root config. Okay, root.cube and the config. This file is showing there, right? This file is there. We need to create the same file there in our user. So let's switch to home sam user. And do we have that dot cube? I think we have created. Okay, all right. Now I would say dot cube and I will say config. Fine. Let's edit this file and let's copy this entire stuff. And I just need to remove this hash from here. Okay. because these CML files are very sensitive, so we need to make sure that we are not creating any mistake or something, right? Let me do one thing. Let me take a one more session for this, and there we will just see all these details, certificate data and everything. Okay. Now let me quickly log in. And I need to log in. I need to see the certificate. Let me just, because yesterday we have discussed, right? We have these all main certificates are sitting under where? Sitting under etc Kubernetes PKI. So we need this certificate, right? But this certificate is in normal text, right? Like encrypted format. But since we are putting with the hash data, so instead of this, we need to put in base 64 format. Okay, so let's change this to base 64 format. Again, it will be in single line, so I will just copy our certificate from here to here, and I will go and I will get rid of this line, and I will paste my certificate data. Fine. Now Kubernetes, I would say, okay, I will say, let's say my cloud cluster, just for a change. Okay. Now, which cluster I have named it? I have named it to cloud cluster. So we need to put the same name here. Okay. So I would say cloud cluster and Sam. Okay. And Sam need to authenticate to which? Sam need to authenticate to the cloud cluster again. And this is the current context, means that default context we have set for our kube config file, and it will be cloud cluster config present Sam. Now you can see that here we need to do two things. First, we need to put the signed certificate in the base 64 format, and that's what that certificate is, where you can see k get csr. Okay, kubectl get csr, right? And CSR name is this one. If I just say to this YAML, so here you can see this is the certificate I have, and I think it is already in base 64 format, so we can use the same thing here. I have copied and I have pasted here. Now we need a key as well. From where we get the key? If you remember, just now we have created a key for this user, and for this user, key was created under something called TLS cert directory inside root. Here you can see this was the SAM key, but again it will be in encrypted format and we need a base 64 encoded. So I will change this again in single line, and I will just quickly copy, and I will go to my file, and I think we have few garbage value. Let me clear out with the key. It's starting from ls0. Okay, we need to get rid of this user space k. One more. Now we are good. Okay. Now if I cat this file again, so now this file, and if I cat the file from here, root.cube and the config file. Okay. So this file is starting from here. And this file is starting from the same thing, API version, this one cluster key, and this is the cluster authority data. This is the same certificate which we have for our this ls0 tlsl something ending with the whatever fzp, and you can see that zwnd. So these lines are matching, right? That means that the certificate data we are using. But for the user key, this is the user key. Let's see what certificate we have for uh, our this admin user, right? Cube admin user, you can see it is starting from this one, right? And let's see what we have. We have this ls0 tls1 ending with ww1, but here it is ending with lkt, right? So this is different. Because why this is different? Because this is a sam user key, and that was a for cube api client. Similarly, this is that was the certificate. Similarly, for the key as well, you can see we have a different key, right? I think it is L again is missing, but let me see one more time. Uh, yeah, it is starting with L, and we are missing the L here. Okay, let me go inside this and fix it. Otherwise, it will give you error. Okay, here we need to put capital L. Capital L. Fine. It's not yet. Okay, now we have ls0 one time only. ls0tl, right? So we need to get rid of this L. Okay. Okay, now let's save this file quickly and let's see what is the status now. So I have created a kube config file for a SAM user. I have put the certificate from the Kubernetes cluster. I have put the SAM user certificate which we have signed from the Kubernetes cluster, and then we have put the SAM user key. Okay, so we are good now. Now, if I just want to do kubectl get node, so you can see that earlier, if you remember, it was giving something. What it was giving? It was giving a error called, let me scroll up if it will show. I think here we no, in this also it, okay, we have clear out the screen, so it will not show us. But if you remember, earlier it was saying that not able to get right, connection refused or something. But now you can see what it is saying is error from server forbidden. Why forbidden? Because if I show you the role now, kubectl get roles, and if I just roll this app team, what it can do? It can, oh sorry, describe, okay, kubectl describe role app hyphen team. Because this role we have created for the SAM user, right? Because that was we have done for this. Uh, there was a typo. It's not S, it's only TEAM. Okay. Now let's see. It can just only list the pods, right? Let's try to, instead of nodes, let's try to do a pods, whether it will allow us or not. Now you can see it is not giving forbidden, it is not giving a connection refused, but rather it can give you a thing called this. We have the create as well. Okay, let's try to do one thing. Kubectl run nginx1 equal to image equal to nginx. Let's see if it able to create or not. Okay, dash dash is missing in the image, so we need to put a dash dash image flag. But it's running slow. Come on. One more. Kubectl run nginx1 dash dash image equal to nginx. And indeed, you can see that the SAM user is able to create this user, right? And if now, if you try to uh, get the pod, you can see that. And the same thing you can do here in this another session as well, where we have logged in with root user. Okay. Now let me try here. Kubectl get pods. Here also you can see that the same thing I can do. But since we don't have the delete action assigned to this role app team, right? Let's try to delete this. pod, okay, kubectl delete, because that's what the operation I want to do it with this user, okay, delete pod nginx 1. What do you think? It will be able to delete or not? Let's check it out. Kubectl delete pod nginx, and again we have got what? We have got forbidden. Why? Because it is saying user Sam cannot delete resources pod in API group in the namespace default. And there is one more thing, it can list out the pod in the default namespace only. It cannot list out the pod in another namespace. Let's check it out in the cube system. Okay, and we'll see whether it will be able to do it or not. Okay, so it is kubectl get pod hyphen n, and I'm checking in the cube system namespace. And see now. And now you can see again we have got the forbidden. Now it is saying is Sam cannot list resources ports in the API group in the namespace cube system. So you can see that the error which we are getting with all these things, right? It is a self-descriptive, right? It is clearly saying that a particular user cannot do this thing in a that particular namespace. Right? Then we can find out, okay, this is the reason like we are not doing. And there is one more way, right? Let's say there is one more way to check it out if you want to do so, whether that kubectl auth can I, okay, because with that what you can do, you can check without login to that particular user if you want to check whether that user do one thing or not. Auth can I, if I remember the syntax correctly. Okay, now I'm saying, okay, check the authentication or the authorization, whom delete pod. If you do one thing, right, and you can see that I am doing it as a normal cube ADM and I can getting this, right? But if you want to do it as Sam, let's see, because previous command ran with the help of a cube ADM, the full privilege authorization or the privilege we have, right? But now I am checking with okay, as user is missing, so let me put it, let me check first, I think. Okay, it's double dash here actually. So now you can see that uh, no, can you see this? No, because with the SAM user we cannot do this. System service account token not found, that is for the service account it is saying, but as a SAM user I cannot delete the pod, right? Let's say if I do the same command with the create in the user namespace called default, then let's check it out. Instead of delete, what I would say, default default, and I will say instead of delete, let's say create, and you can see yes. Why? Because that's what the permission we have assigned to our API team role, right? It can get, list and create, but it cannot delete. All right, so that's how that you can define multiple roles, multiple rollbacks, whatever that you have the requirement, right? And that is the way if you have a dedicated file for that user. Now let's try to do one more thing. Let's try to create a as of now this user is cannot list the any of the storage account or anything, right? Let me do one thing. Uh, with default user, if I do that k get sa, right? There is no aliasing set, so we need to do kubectl. Come on, kubectl get sa service account I am getting. I can list out, right? But with the SAM user, let's check out whether we are able to do it or not. Where is the session? Okay, this is the session. Earlier was session for the this one. Now, if I just say kubectl get SA, kubectl get SA, you can see that again we are getting a forbidden because it cannot list out all these. And though this user's role we haven't assigned by default, right? It was embedded in where it was embedded in the certificate itself for the authentication, right? And this user we have created to that particular certificate. So now what we need to do is we need to create this role called uh, let me see what role we have. Vi sam sa hyphen role. Okay, I am creating another role. Before that, just to get the syntax, I will cat this file, this one, and I will copy this. And let's check out what we have for the what is the what do you call it, API version for this. Okay, let me quickly run kubectl. Mm, kubectl API hyphen resources. Sources, and let's pipe it to service account so that we'll see that what is the uh, API resource for the service account. Okay, now if you list out, so for this is v1 only, so we are good now. Okay, so let's cat that SAM role and we will create in our new certificate for the storage role, not certificate, the role, and then we'll bind it and we'll see that whether we'll able to do it or not. Okay, so let's copy this, and I would say sam sa role.yaml. I'm gonna create a new role for sam user. So instead of pod resource now, what will be the resource now? This will be the service account, and in which API resources it is in, again in the core API resources. Okay, so let's do one thing. It is service account. Okay, let's do one thing. Just change this to, let me just copy quickly. This is the service account, and let's paste it out. And I just want to list it. I don't want to create the service account with the user called Sam. Okay, so I will delete that other verbs. I just keep the list so that it can list out that particular service account. Okay, now let's quickly delete it. This is the role file we have created, and we need to create a role binding file as well. Okay, now I have this file and I need to bind this role. So let's quickly copy the syntax from this existing bind file. Okay, I think the system is stuck now. Let me reboot and then come back. Okay, it is behaving very vague. Okay, just let me pause and I'll reboot the system and then we'll see it. Okay, I'm back and I have taken a new session for this. So let's see. We have created the SA role so far. Now we need to create a role binding for this particular user. Okay, so what I will do is sam hyphen sa hyphen role hyphen bind dot yaml, and I will copy this and I will just paste it. I think the name we forgot to change in our role bind file role as well. So we need to keep the new role. So here there is a role binding. No, I want to do it in SAM role. I need to change this SAM SA role. Okay, SAM SA role. Fine, and it can list only the service account because as of now you can see that it cannot list out. All right, now let's change SAM SA role we have given, right? And let's refer the same role inside this as well. SAM SA role, and I would just say SAM SA role binding to the name of this role binding. SAM SA role binding. Okay, now this is the role binding we have created. Before we create, let's cat the both file just to check one more time. We are all good. So this is the role I am creating, SAM as a role in the core API group, a resource called service account, and on that it can list. And who can list this? To whomsoever I am just assigning this role. So I am assigning this role to a user called Sam in the default namespace. All right. Here you can see we have a typo. So that's what it is recommended to double check before you applying anything. Okay. Now it is fine. Now let's quickly create kubectl create -f. I am gonna create the role first, and then I am gonna create a role binding for this role. Now if I list kubectl get role, kubectl get role, we have that SAM SA role, right? And similarly, if I just list out the role binding, so we have this. Now if I try this, so you can see that now we don't have that forbidden because now we have the privilege to that default namespace. But if I do the same thing in cube system, again we get the forbidden because in this namespace we don't have privilege. We have privilege only in the default namespace. All right, so that's how that you can control all these stuff, how you can take the privilege of your RBAC, how you can assign that role to a particular user. And that's what we have seen, that how you can get the certified certificate signed from the particular user, what all roles you can give. Okay, let me take back to the code. Okay, so here you can see we have all these privilege group, right, which you can embedded inside your certificate, so that or maybe in the CSR, right? In the certificate, you can embed the particular role which you have already created. Maybe you can create for a particular group, and the same certificate you want to use for particular team, or maybe group of people that you can assign. And from here, you can assign this, right? So you can, you need to sign this new certificate for this, and then probably that particular user will do this, because as of now we cannot list out any of the node. If you want to do this, you need to create a new certificate for this user, and you need to assign into that particular group. All right, so that's what this RBAC and this role and role binding is. There is one thing left in this, the service account, right, which I will take in the next video, where I will gonna talk about like how you can create a service account and what is the use of the service account, and uh, what all you can do. Same way how you can create a particular certificate, service account certificate to authenticate yourself, right? And then we will see that demo. I have two Python file which will give you a API call towards your cluster, and then will list out all the pods from your cluster. All right, so that's what the see everything we'll see in the next video. As of now, that's it for the today. I hope this RBAC, although it was splitted in the two parts because the one video was might be very lengthy, so that's what I thought to in one video to explain what exactly it is. And in this video, we have seen purely the hands-on on this, like how exactly the demo works for this role and role binding. All right. So again, if you like my content, then please subscribe my channel, hit on that bell icon so that you will not miss any of the video for any of the hot topics, right? And stay tuned because in next video we are coming up with the service account and the demo from the outside of the cluster, right? Because that's what that we have discussed. Service account is something which is where you will integrate a third party tool, right? So we'll see that if you have a, let's say, some application where you just want to display the ports, or if you want to just list out in the Python script also what all ports are running as of now, and then we are just doing something on that, analyzing, or maybe whatever you have the requirement, right? That's what we will see in the next video. All right, so I will take a pause from today and I will meet you in the next video. Thank you guys. Bye bye.